respect and control in relationships. This is something that I've recently really dived deep into, something that is not new to me, this idea, but the lens with which I'm looking at respect and control in relationships is different. And I've recently discovered the work of Laura Doyle. If anyone knows of Laura Doyle and her work, let me know. It's amazing. And this video that I'm making today is for anyone interested in harmonizing their relationships in ways that maybe they haven't yet thought about or experimented with. So I really love that idea of experimenting with certain skills and techniques and communication methods and even our own self-reflection, using them as experiments in our relationships to see what might work. And I think a lot of the rhetoric around relationships generally, and especially online, I don't know if you're like me and like keep seeing the same sort of quotes and memes and inspirational words shared about relationships that I'm now seeing in a different way that makes me like feel a bit sick, because it feels as if it's missing a really essential part of relating, and it creates a sense of entitlement. Let me know if you feel the same way or if you know what I'm meaning behind this, but essentially it's things like, I'm a communication coach, right? I communicate in a way that is very mindful and compassionate as much as I can, and I share that. But the rhetoric that communication is the way to solve everything is not quite right, because we can over-communicate and we can damage our relationships through that. We can bring things to the other person that would otherwise be more beneficial to bring to our friend or to just sit with ourselves and not share about. And it may seem like it's concealing or hiding, but actually no, we can't treat our partners like a dumping ground for all of our thoughts and all of our feelings and all of our worries and all of our fears. We can share things like that with them, but being tactful around knowing what might be overwhelming and at which time to share and what is relevant is really important, and that's a sign of respect. So in respect to respect and control, has anyone had this feeling of wanting their partner or whoever else it might be to see the world like you see the world, wanting them to do things like you do things, commenting in certain ways that you don't even realize is you controlling, but actually is, saying certain things, sharing your perception, sharing your experience in such a way where you're using very carefully constructed words to get to a certain outcome. Guess what? That's called manipulation. We don't realize we're doing it. A lot of the time, even asking certain questions, which can be leading questions to lead to a certain outcome that we desire or to get them to see something, we don't realize we're doing this, that we're actually inadvertently controlling them. And what that is doing is disrespecting them. It is not respecting their autonomy, their personal experience of life. It's not respecting them as a human completely separate from you. And what kind of effect does that have? It pushes them away. Now, for anyone with anxious attachment, I know this is thrown around a lot, all the attachment styles. For anyone who feels like they are more in their anxious attachment spectrum, I know that's where I would say I would be. It feels like a necessity sometimes to want to fix everything and make it go away that you think will make you feel better, whether that be sitting down and having conversations all of the time about the relationship, or making sure everything is clear and fine and okay before you go to bed, which means staying up for 3 hours and exhausting each other by having a really long-winded conversation. I used to do that. It was terrible. I realize now it was disrespecting my partner's energy. It was disrespecting my own dignity. And so there's things that we do to try to feel safe. Controlling really is about trying to feel safe, trying to feel soothed, trying to feel better. Why are we controlling the outcome? Because we think that the outcome will make us feel good. So we do all of these things to control and to share our needs in such a way where if they don't meet them, we won't be okay. Now, there is so much complexity around this idea of our needs being met. Of course, it's important, but one person cannot meet all of your needs. And sharing from a space where you feel like you will not be okay in life unless this person does this or meets that need is really putting your power of happiness and joy in their hands. It may mean that if there's a certain amount of not being able to be met in the relationship, that you have to take space from the relationship. But if you're in a relationship long enough that there's been a lot of joy and beauty and vulnerability and tenderness and love and connection, chances are you could be steering yourself away from all of that with actually your ultimate intention being to move toward that. So I'm going to share openly here, my own journey has been letting go of this anxiety, which has come through from many different ways, from my childhood and trauma and past experiences with my partner and all of these things, which I could focus on all of that healing. I have for years, all of the trauma healing modalities and nervous system realignment, and that is important. But I believe what is also very, very important is recognizing that that is mine, not theirs. And that I can share desires, but if I'm sharing it with an expectation that it needs to be met, I am setting myself up for the power of my happiness to be in their hands, which means I am not empowered in myself. So what I'm really taking away from this is when I feel that need, and the control for some people comes out as wanting to really steer their partner into a certain way of life or certain way of being or certain actions or activities or things that you think would be good for them or all of these things. And we might drop them as little hints, which can often be taken as criticism. Now, what happens when you're criticized? What does that make you feel? It doesn't inspire you to go and do the thing that they're criticizing you about. Generally, what we do when we feel like we're being controlled, whether inadvertently and quite subtly or in a strong way, is we need to assert our power. So if anyone's trying to attempt to control us, we'll go assert our power and generally do the opposite or continue to do the thing that they're telling us not to do. And that's a way for us to try to hold on to our autonomy. That's like innate in many humans. So I would say all of us really. So trying to create a certain outcome because you want to feel good and you think that that outcome will lead you to feeling good, you can skip that step. You can actually start from where you started in the relationship, where you met them, feeling good. Likely you didn't attract this person into your life because you were complaining about something. Likely you didn't attract them into your life because you were so needy when you first met them that you're like, I need you so much. No, that's repulsive. Likely you were in your own lane, living your life, being empowered, feeling good because you're doing things in life that are focused on you and not in a selfish way. That might be actually being of service to others. That's focusing on your service, your mission. But you are in that space. And sometimes we can get lost, and that's okay because we don't realize that we've created certain patterns of being. Maybe they were modeled for us in how we grew up. Maybe the rhetoric of what we've been told in these beautiful, well-meaning memes or relationship advice that actually is not helpful and hurts people more. That you should always talk about everything, or that if you don't feel safe with a partner, then they're not the right partner. Actually, maybe it's about you learning how to feel safe on your own. In partnership, how to soothe yourself, how to comfort yourself, how to be in your own joy no matter what happens. And how can you do that in relationship, not just when you separate and when you're in that state of singledom and then you get back with someone and then the enmeshment happens and then there needs to be a certain level of control, but rather how can you just focus on your joy and your autonomy and your empowerment so much that you are not trying to control the outcome, the person, emotional expression, any of those ways to control. And that is respecting the other person. It's very interesting. We don't often do this with our friends. We actually can often respect our friends and their lives and autonomy more than our partners. And that's sad to think, but actually it's true. And it doesn't mean that there's no hope. It just means there's a new way of being to practice. So my advice, what I'm doing, what I'm steeping into very deeply, what feels like the missing piece to a certain way of being that I have felt not fully matured yet, is this idea of really, really prioritizing my empowered happiness. And I think I thought I was doing that before. I think I really did think that that's what I was doing. Self-love, it's me first, all of this, but not with the lens that I look at now. And there's been many moments that I've looked back on certain things that I've shared with my partner that I realize now have actually disrespected him. Not in a very strong and overt way, but in certain ways, yes. So I'll be apologizing to him now, saying, hey, when I didn't fully let you speak when we were sharing things, and I just went to share my own experience directly after you shared yours, rather than letting you know that I heard you, rather than asking and inquiring, I realized that that was disrespecting you. And I'm sorry for that. I apologize for disrespecting you. I can understand how that makes you feel unheard, and that you might think that me expressing my own process in response to your process is telling you that mine's the right way and yours isn't. Or when we're having a discussion late at night and we're both really exhausted. What happens when I'm exhausted? I get very emotional and I can't think clearly. When I'm exhausted, my brain just goes to mush and I cannot stay in this clear state of being. When my partner's exhausted, he doesn't have space to hold anything. So isn't that a terrible recipe for trying to have a conversation about something like heart-based? And so when that happened, I had to share with him, I apologize for disrespecting your energy. I understand that I disrespected myself by being so exhausted and falling back into an old pattern of fear and anxiety around a certain topic that I wasn't in my clarity, and I tried to bring this to you. In this state of claiming more of your autonomy and your humility and accountability and how you might be respecting or disrespecting who your partner is, what they're sharing, where they're at, what their truth is, what they're feeling. It's a way for you to heal things, not just in your relationship, but in yourself, and not just for right now, but from your past. For me, I stay in a state, or rather I try to stay in a state of faith over fear, and know that my fear response or my insecurity or anxiety is a patterned way of being that I don't need to do anymore. And there are other things that I can do in those moments where I might normally go to insecurity and then try to fix it or solve it. So I hope this shared maybe a little bit of insight. If you want to dive into this stuff deeper, I will be offering something shortly around this aspect of respecting, surrendering, and having faith over fear. If you want to get even deeper and you want to come to Bali and you're a woman, come to my retreat in August. And if you want to know where I'm learning this stuff from right now, it's Laura Doyle, her work. You can start with listening to the book or reading the book, The Empowered Wife. I'm not a wife yet, I listen to it, but it can help anyone in all relationships. It is specifically geared toward women in certain ways, women in relationships with men, but I really see it as working with women in relationships with other women. It's not really for men though. and I'm sorry about that. But the idea of respecting the partner and not controlling them and their process and their life is for everybody. Sending you so much respect and love and joy, and a reminder that what you focus on is what you create. So be very, very mindful of where your focus is and the thoughts that you feed, which feed the actions which eventually grow into your life.